Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to Devlog number 27 for a spaceship game that I'm making in Unreal Engine 5 with my buddy Rich. The goal of these devlogs is to show you from start to finish the process of learning how to make a video game and then making that video game. We're pretty far into it, and today I get to show off some cool stuff like some new explosive enemies in the game, designing different types of atmospherics for space and different level designs. And we get to talk about loading levels and the entire architecture of how we're going to build the game, because we're at a point where we have to make some big decisions to move forward. All right, let's start off with something a little more explosive. Here's our new mine system in the game. Enjoying that effect. Made that last week and we got it all rigged this week. Let's do it again. Oh, it got me. So we're thinking about calling these ShockWave Mines, and the audio was done by Panzer V1, who's been doing most of the audio for this game. And I think they sound great. They look cool, they sound great. There's definitely some VFX touch-up I want to do on them. And these are not designed to be difficult things to avoid or get past, but we can use them in combination with other types of mines that have different ranges. That these could become problematic if you get distracted or you're caught off guard by another enemy and you start flying into it. They'll be hard to avoid. Also, if you're in a bigger, less maneuverable ship and you're heading towards one of these, you might not be able to actually dodge the shockwave quite as easy. I'm in a smaller, lightweight ship, and even then, if you have the wrong trajectory, it can be hard to dodge them if you don't see them coming. Now, to build this effect, I'm using Unreal Engine's Niagara system. I used the same spaceship explosion that I developed way long ago, scaled up some properties, started deleting things, and the big new element here is the actual shockwave. When seen on its own, it's basically just a single sprite that scales up over time and then fades. And it's all based on this image right here that I made in Photoshop, a simple black and white alpha image. And once we plug that into a more complex material sequence, well, that's where the complexities and the math come in. It's using radial gradients and some clever masking and noise channels that are animated to give this fun interior effect that also makes the exterior of the ring a little bit more wobbly. I was told to work on some dissolve fades for it, but I couldn't quite get that working in time, so I'll come back to that a little bit later. Now, when it comes to creating a collaborative asset in the game, something that relies on a coder, a VFX guy, and a sound person to make it all come together and not be something that's too hard to change and edit down the road, there's a certain order in which things need to be built, and I'm going to let Rich explain that.
This ShockWave Mine is a great example of where engineers need to pay attention to the difference and the relationship between the gameplay logic, the balancing, and the aesthetics. We want to engineer this to make it very easy for the game designers to go in and tweak little numbers here and there for gameplay balance. And it needs to be easy for the tech artists, visual effects designers, sound designers to go in and tweak assets like sound effects or particle systems. And if you mess with a particle system, there shouldn't be a chance for you to break the game logic. So to put it really simply, we want the game designer to tweak the gameplay balance, which affects the game logic, drives the game logic, and then that affects and drives the visual effects and sound effects. We want it to go in that direction and not the other direction. So for example, with this shockwave system, one path you could go down is that you could say in this particle system, we'll use, maybe we'll use collision from that particle, or we'll use the radius value, the current radius value of that particle to determine what gets hit by that shockwave. By doing that, you're giving control of the game logic to a piece of visual effects. But you want the tech artist or the visual effects designer to be able to go in and do anything they want in that particle system to make it look good and look different without accidentally changing or getting rid of a key part of the functionality. Another problem that sets up is that now if the game designer wants to adjust the gameplay balance by, say, making the system bigger, they have to go do that in the particle system. And that's not where we want the game designer to be tweaking things. We want them to have some, data tables or something like that they're just adjusting numbers there. Setting things up this way takes a little forethought, might even take a little bit of extra work sometimes, but it's definitely valuable. Even for a solo dev, you have to think about the possibility that other devs are going to come along. You might get help, or, you always have to think about that future dev that looks at this code for the first time. Might actually be me looking at it again after 6 months, and I've since forgotten everything about it. But as you get more and more people in the project, the bigger the team gets, the more important it is to think about this type of architecture.
So for any type of actor that we make in the game that we're going to know we're going to need to modify and use extensively down the road, it has to be built in a very intelligent way that allows us to change everything later on, and that requires that specific order that Rich just laid out. Now, for the majority of the devlogs that you guys have watched, they've more or less taken place in or around this main level here with this kind of lava planet in the background. Part of the reason for that is that we've spent a lot of this time building environmental assets and figuring out the workflow for the environment. I'm at a phase now where it's time to start experimenting with different visual looks, different environmental design for the game. And so this is the first new map I made in a little while. I've basically repurposed the lava planet there and changed the colors and a bunch of properties with it to get this kind of cool new green glowing planet. I'm still using the Space Creator Pro plugin that has a lot of good planet tools, and then I can bake those textures in so the shaders aren't quite as expensive. They are still kind of expensive, but just not quite as crazy as before. I'm also using the Ultra Dynamic Sky plugin with the Aurora enabled instead of the clouds to give me this kind of more nebulous feel for the region. And I'm digging it. This is definitely a visual style I could see being fun in a bunch of levels, so definitely keeping this one in the pocket. I then made another map that I named Distress Call, in the sense that what if you got a mission where somebody's like, hey, I'm under attack, and you got to jump to a new region real quickly. I thought that region could be cool if it was kind of more cloudy, harder to see, felt like a place where pirates might ambush you. So I made this, but I also wanted to put something in the background. So I also made a moon-like planet that kind of peeks through the clouds from time to time, and it has its own rings on it just for fun. I do like the planet, but it also made me realize that just having that black starry background for everything is something that I'm going to need to start modifying down the road. So looking into background alterations is going to help us kind of diversify the visual style. Now, a huge portion of my week also consisted of doing level loading research. This little orange square you see here on screen triggers a level load to a new map. And while that's all fine and good, this is a very basic effect, and it doesn't quite give me what I was envisioning for a level transition effect, which would be going into some sort of FTL hyperspace bubble, cool particle effects, and then popping out into the next level. That's a little trickier to do because you have to do level streaming. You have to load things in while other effects are masking the load sequence. And so while I got a very traditional level load going and I'm masking it with a level load sequence, I ultimately came to the conclusion that I think we're going to try and use world partitions and data layers. This is a new system in Unreal Engine 5 that is still kind of in the building phase. They're adding features to it with pretty much every update to the engine. And this system is basically going to allow me to nest all of my levels into one main map, and then we can load and unload those levels using what's called data layers in here and trigger those with different in-game events. So if all goes well, we can load in the levels and transport the player around the map, and hopefully that'll be the final workflow. But it took a lot of research and trial and error to try and figure out what the best solution might be. So there's a lot of stuff going on under the hood right now. I'm really excited to continue experimenting with world partitions and seeing just how far I can push that system into what we want from this game. Hopefully I'll be making a lot more progress on that next week. Now, again, if you guys want to follow this game more closely, check out our Discord. It's linked in the video description. We post updates and ask questions there. We even let players give us suggestions on how to progress forward with the game, which is cool. So check us out there, and if you want to learn more about this spaceship game, check out our whole devlog playlist here, and this video showing the idea behind the game, the overarching goals of what we're trying to make here. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.